everybody, and welcome to Bearded Things. My name is Chris. I'm one of your Bearded Things, and I'm here with my buddy.
Hi, guys. My name is Tyler. I am the second half of our Bearded Things, Bearded Friends. How are you today?
I think I'm doing good. I think our listeners are hopefully alive and doing well.
Yes, please be alive and please be listening. We need listeners and we need you to be alive.
Oh, and if you're not alive, if you can somehow phone in, that would be pretty great.
Yeah, that'd be great. There's plenty of Ouija boards out there. I've seen it. So just kind of communicate through that board and just spell out Bearded Things, and we'll bring some people to our traffic.
Totally. And what are we doing here? What's the point of all this, man?
It's to stay sane, in the pandemic, we need to be sane. But the point of Bearded Things is one thing I think that, we like to hear ourselves talk. And we want to bring people, hopefully, some entertaining stories and bring some joy and some happiness into the world. Right now, there's a lot going on throughout the world, in the U.S. particularly. We're dealing with a lot right now. So hopefully, between our topics that we bring you, some of our banter that we're having, we want to try to just bring some smiles, happiness to you guys.
Most of you guys, you know who you are. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. Some of you, not so much. You guys can just go F the hell off.
But the rest of you guys, we're glad you're here tonight.
Yeah, thanks for joining us.
And let's get into why we're qualified to do this. So I can start if that works.
Yeah, go for it. Why are you qualified to do this, Chris?
Well, because I have a beard. And the name of the podcast is Bearded Things. So I think that's actually how I got the gig.
Nice. Yeah, that's why you were hired.
Totally. So about me, hi, my name's Chris. I'm a bearder. I've been bearding for longer than I can remember. I actually don't remember what my face looks like. Let's see. Tyler's absolutely right. We love to hear our voices. And I might accidentally go into the wrong radio voice and start talking like this. And I'm sorry when I do.
I'll let you know when you do. Don't worry.
Yeah, I've been doing radio for a very long time, off and on throughout the years. Actor, starving artist, starving actor, but stay fluffy. So I, find the balance in it all. So that's my story.
You found the magic to be starving and fluffy at the same time. I'm very impressed.
Absolutely. It's carbs, top ramen, tortillas, top ramen in tortillas.
Ooh, there you go. Well, about myself a little bit. As I said earlier, my name is Tyler. I am also a bearded friend. I think I had a beard probably as early as I can remember growing a beard. I always liked the fact that when I had a beard, I looked way older. If I were to shave today, I still look like I'm about 12 years old, which is still a terrifying sight. I either look like I'm 12 or I look like my sister, which either one is bad. Either one is not a compliment. So I'm okay with keeping my beard. It's not as long as it used to be. That's not what she said. I've had to trim it just because I'm getting old and the gray and the white hairs are starting to show. And so I try to keep it a little bit more trim than it used to be. It used to be pretty long, down to my chest. And now it's just kind of, a little short trimmed beard. But I have never worked radio. I have been told I have a very wonderful voice, mainly by people that love me. I don't get random strangers telling me I have a wonderful voice. I have had people, it's funny, Chris, I told you the story off the air. Since we decided to start doing this podcast, I've had multiple people tell me that you have a pretty good voice. You have a voice for radio, which normally people tell me I have a face for radio. So I'm glad that someone said I have a voice for radio for once.
Well, now they're both true.
Is it? Yeah. It's all coming together. But yeah, aside from doing this podcast, I work for a retail chain, home of the world's longest receipts. And that's about it right now. That kind of takes up majority of my life, trying to, keep people healthy during this pandemic.
And it's a very noble thing.
Yes. Not everyone thinks so. The amount of bullshit I deal with on a daily basis from customers, they don't think it's a noble thing. But I appreciate you saying that.
Yeah, and I'm just going to put it out there. It's kind of a PSA. Don't be a mask hole. Put the freaking mask on.
Please, I would appreciate it. I don't want to come up and ask you to put a mask on because I don't want to be a jerk. But there's also people, especially, in our chain, we're a drugstore. People are in our store because they're sick. They're getting medicine. We don't want to risk it. Please just wear a mask.
Yeah, and if you, for whatever reason, if you can't wear a mask, if you refuse to wear a mask, just order your crap online and it'll be there in a few days.
That's very true. Especially our store has an online delivery system. There's a reward system that you can even sign up for where you can do online delivery. Please look into it. You can still get everything you need. Most of the time, the delivery is free. Just, help us out.
Yeah, don't be a jerk. And and then our story, I think, is kind of cool, is we've been friends, nay, brothers, for 27 27 years, I think.
About that, yeah, I know we celebrated our 25th anniversary, but I know when we first met each other, we weren't broskies. We weren't best friends yet. In fact, I think the first couple of years you guys spent pummeling me because I was the little brother.
That's absolutely accurate.
Yeah, yeah, 100% accurate. We'll get into that story one of these days. We'll let the wonderful listeners know about the time that you guys beat the shit out of me in my front yard.
Well, it's because your friends were little bitches.
My friends ran away while you guys jumped me. Awesome. Thanks. Appreciate it. Love you guys. You know who you are. You were there.
It was great.
But yeah, so yeah, about 27 years. The funny thing was that you were my older brother's, like one of his best friends growing up, and everyone thought that you and I were the brothers because we look very scarily similar.
It's kind of creepy that we actually do look like brothers.
Yeah, like all the time we go places like, we're mistaken for like actual brothers.
Or Boston Red Sox in Las Vegas.
That's true. I totally forgot about that. Yeah. It's because, if you're a Boston Red Sox, you're going to wear a Red Sox hat.
Absolutely, because you're a Sox fan.
You're going to advertise that. And so, yeah, we were, even though the game was on TV.
It was on in the background. So here's the story. It was Vegas. We were leaving that day, I believe. And we were walking. So. Yeah, it was like a Sunday. Yeah. And so we're walking through the lobby with all of our gear on. I am a big Red Sox fan. So I had my Red Sox hat on because they're wicked bad. And a guy, I think he was like Pakistani or Indian, he stops us and he's like, "Excuse me, are you guys on the team?" And we're like, "What?" He's like, "The Red Sox," pointing at my hat. And we both kind of look at each other. Behind him on the Vegas televisions is the Red Sox game.
Yeah.
And we're like, absolutely, we're on the Red Sox.
Yes, we are, sir. Good to meet you.
So that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, that was awesome. That was a good time.
So we decided, while we're all quarantined and social distancing and trying to be responsible non-mask holes, that we would do this here. And we think we have a good formula for everyone where we're going to do 2 segments and a little wild card in the middle that we're going to be calling Banter with the Beardsleys, which we'll get into in the middle. We'll get to that. You'll see. I think you'll like it.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's fun. It kind of, we'll get into the details of it, but it's very nice. It's kind of off the cuff, just kind of banter, for lack of a better word, between the two of us.
And it's a wild card. You'll see. We'll get there. You'll see.
Yeah.
I want to talk about it, but not yet.
Yeah, we'll get there. Don't worry.
And so as far as our different sections go, so you're going to tell a story, I'm going to tell a story. We don't really tell each other what we're working on. We just kind of give each other like a rough general idea of where our topics are.
Yes, and our topics we have a very strong love for paranormal and horror. And so we've been together for a lot of adventures and paranormal investigations and watching horror movies and scary movies. So a lot of our experiences are going to kind of merge together, and we could have a lot of similarities between that. So that's why we kind of give each other a heads up about what we're going to cover. But we also want to cover the whole spectrum. We don't want to just be another paranormal podcast, because there's a lot of those out there right now, which most of them are all freaking amazing. I love them.
Shout outs to all of our friends, Adam and Robin over at Scarish for sure.
Yeah.
They rock. Just putting it out there.
Yes.
So as an example of that, you gave me a rough idea on what you were going to be doing, which made me rethink one of the things that I was going to do. So I'll save my topic for a later time.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, that works out well. Yeah. Hopefully I didn't steal your topic. If I did, my bad. Suck it, loser.
No, I think we're good.
Nice. So do you want to go ahead and get into your topic?
Yeah, absolutely. So I will kick things off. You kicked things off last week. I will give it a whirl.
Alrighty, I'm all ears.
Mine has to do somewhat with kind of American history-ish.
Oh, so I kind of covered a person in American history last week, excuse me.
Last week, yeah. Mine is covering a few different people. So mine, nice. It's kind of dabbles into the paranormal a little bit, but nothing too deep. It's just kind of, it makes you go, So picking this week's topic, it was a little bit tough for me. It led to just a lot of self-awareness and discovery. And I realized I really like obscure historical stuff that doesn't really have a lot of info.
Awesome. That's good.
Yeah, maybe that's why I like it, right? Maybe I'm going to be the guy who discovers this thing.
Yeah, you crack it open, you crack open the tomb and you discover all the curses and the evilness and everyone dies.
Funny you should mention that. We're going to circle back to that in a second.
All right.
I didn't do any of that extravagant stuff at all.
So you're saying you caused the 2020 everything that's going on right now?
That's again, we'll
get there.
We'll get there. Actually, let's just jump right into that. So this week I'm doing the Curse of Tippecanoe.
Okay.
Have you heard of the Curse of Tippecanoe?
I've heard of the Battle of Tippecanoe, and I know I forget the president who ran. It was William Henry Harrison who ran.
Absolutely was William Henry Harrison.
Booyah, history.
Yeah, nerd.
Hey, whatever, man. The only reason I know that, side fact, is because growing up, my favorite president was John Tyler because his last name was Tyler. And so I learned everything I could about him other than after I found out that he was a terrible president and he was kind of an asshole. But I remember the slogan that they ran with was Tippecanoe and Tyler too.
And this is exactly why we used to beat you up all of the time.
Totally worth it.
So the Curse of Tippecanoe. What is the Curse of Tippecanoe, you ask?
I do ask.
Well, the Curse of Tippecanoe was also known as, I'm going to say this horribly wrong, and I am very sorry to the spirit of our great ancestors. Also known as Tecumseh's Curse, or the 20-year presidential curse. The curse alleges that there's a pattern of deaths every 20 years or every year ending in 0 if the election is held that year.
Interesting.
So it all started in 1840 with your boy, William Henry Harrison.
All right.
He was elected president, but before that, like many early presidents, Harrison was a governor, specifically of the Indiana Territory. So from here, we're going to jump back in time a little bit, and we're going to land in 1811. So Harrison thought it would be a great idea to wage war with the Native Americans to take away their land. Turns out, like, the natives did not think that was cool. So here's a bit of a history lesson just for context and kind of tie it all in. So Shawnee leader Tecumseh with his brother, I'm going to say this so wrong, and I'm sorry, sir, his brother Tenskwatawa banded with other tribes and called themselves the Confederacy. It grew to thousands of warriors, and not just any warriors. These were like the most elite soldiers and hunters from the tribes around the Great Lake region. Essentially, it was like the 1800s version of like the Navy SEALs, but with natives. When Harrison tried to take the land, this group of warriors stood the ground and fought back, and they fought back hard. At the start, they were outnumbered. Towards the end, they were outnumbering Harrison's men by a lot. I forget the exact count, but it was something like 3 or 4 to 1. So
damn, okay.
They did really well. This conflict ended up starting the War of 1812, which started in the year 1812.
What?
Spoiler.
Is it Tecumseh, you're saying? The Shawnee Indian warrior?
Yes, Tecumseh. Yeah, I'm saying it probably word. I think, well, there's Tecumseh and his brother Tenskwatawa.
Okay.
So those two were the head natives in charge of this group of soldiers. Although Tecumseh and his brother Tenskwatawa were outmaneuvering Harrison, they both fell in battle. Tecumseh first. This is where the legend is born. Upon seeing his brother fall, allegedly Tenskwatawa, known by the Shawnee as the Prophet, he places a curse on all future U.S. presidents elected every 20 years. It's also reported as election years ending in 0.
Damn.
I think that seems awfully specific.
That's very specific, yeah.
But full disclosure, I 100% wouldn't doubt it for a second. I mean, I wasn't there, so I can't prove it.
That's true. None of us were there.
Exactly. And the dude's name was the Prophet in his native tongue. So
that's gotta count for something.
Exactly. He has a little bit of clout on him. Now, I'm sure Governor Harrison blew it off as an attempt to have a completely badass few last words. But this was 1812, 1813. He wouldn't be president for another 27 years.
Okay.
And that year was 1840, a year that ends with a 0.
With a 0, yep.
So let's jump ahead those 27 years. And here we are. It's 1840. Harrison was elected president with almost a 53% of the vote, but he barely had a chance to settle in office before his death. After delivering a very, very long inaugural address on a cold and dark, windy day, he was stuck in a rainstorm and caught a serious cold, which would eventually turn into a severe pneumonia infection that killed him 30 days into office.
That sucks.
That's pretty brutal. That's rough. So for a lot of people in that time, it solidified the legend of the curse. But I mean, we're sitting here, it's 2020, we're on essentially a Zoom call, no, not a sponsor.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And reading information that we got off of Google and Wikipedia. So,
Mm.
like for us, we're thinking like, okay, there's no such thing as curses, and even if there is, it's going to take more than one person to die from it to be like a real curse.
Yeah, that's a coincidence, not a curse.
Absolutely. But fret not, my friend, we have more.
Ooh, I like alliteration.
Right. So 20 years later, it's now 1860. There was this young, scrappy president who was just elected into office. His name was Abe, or Abraham Lincoln. And if you're not sure if it was actually him, it could also have been a time-traveling Daniel Day-Lewis, but we don't know that. So the United States quickly moved into a civil war, which would last from 1861 to 1865. Those dates are important because on April 9th, General Robert E. Lee surrendered. And on April 14th, Lincoln was assassinated by a Southern sympathizer and fellow actor, John Wilkes Booth. So, I mean, it was tragic. It, I think, in a lot of ways, shaped today's America. And that was in 1860. So let's fast forward 20 years. The year is 1880. James Garfield was elected to the presidency.
Uh-huh.
He took office on March 4th, 1881. On July 2nd, Charles J. Guiteau shot the president, which eventually led to his death on September 19th, 1881. So, I mean, there's a little bit of a pattern, right? But this is only 1880. It's only been technically,
shit happens.
Yeah, no big deal. So let's say 1900, a guy named William McKinley was elected to his second term. On September 6th, 1901, McKinley was shot by Leon F. Chalcogs. I can't
Easy
say
for
that
you
last
to
one. Right. Which led to McKinley's death on September 14th.
Damn.
So, okay, it's getting weird, right? It's just, it's getting a little bit creepy, but coincidence, right? I mean, you're a president, you're a high-ranking official.
Yeah, back then it was, assassinations were a little more commonplace.
A little commonplace and a lot easier than they would be today.
True, yeah. Not much Secret Service.
Yeah, unless it's 1920.
Uh-huh.
And 1920, which is 20 years later, Warren G. Harding. I just like emphasizing the word.
Yeah. Did he regulate?
Him and Nate Dogg had to regulate, man. He's widely known as one of the worst presidents of all time, which, all things considering, he might have to settle for second. I'm just putting that out there.
Yeah.
Not trying to be political, but, history will tell.
Yes.
So, he had scandals such as the Teapot Dome and others. It was a mess. Everything about it was a mess. So on August 2nd, 1923, Harding was visiting San Francisco on a cross-country voyage of understanding to meet his constituents across the nation, a very noble cause, until he suffered from a stroke and died at the Palace Hotel.
Oh, shit.
Okay, that was 1920.
Well, that's different because the other guys were assassinated, so this is a natural cause. It's a little different. Like, that's not like an external force necessarily acting on him. So that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, and it'd be really weird if something like that were to happen again, say in 1940.
That would be very strange.
One FDR, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, nephew of badass mustachioed Teddy, he was originally elected in 1940. He was elected again in 1944. His presidency began in the depths of the Great Depression and ended shortly thereafter, the fall of Hitler during World War II. Yeah, he died on April 2nd, April 12th, 1945 of cerebral hemorrhage.
That's the bleeding of the brain, right?
Yes, that's essentially, I think, an aneurysm. So, I mean, that's pretty weird because that takes us all the way to 1940. So now it's kind of reaching into, our lifetime, our cognizance of American history. You would think it would stop there, but so that was 1940. There was this guy named Jack, or John, if you will.
I think I know where you're going with this.
John F. Kennedy. He was elected in 1960. He was the youngest leader elected president in 1960. This charismatic leader and swinging Rat Pack honorary member. He had some highs and lows. He had the Bay of Pigs, the Cuban Missile Crisis, building of the Berlin Wall, and a lot of people weren't too fond of him. So on November 22nd in 1963, Kennedy was driving through Dallas in a motorcade and had a very, very bad day.
Yes.
He was assassinated. Lee Harvey Oswald was found to be the guilty lone gunman by the Warren Commission, which, again, history will tell. Who knows? So now we're in modern days, essentially.
Yeah.
So let's flash forward just a little bit more. 1980. We had a guy named Reagan who had a very unique set of economic rules named after him.
This is true. Yes.
So Ronald Reagan was elected. He was interesting, fellow actor as well, and created Reaganomics, which turned out to not be a great thing for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
not going to delve into that, but it led to a lot of hard times for a lot of people. There was also the Iran-Contra scandal. There was a lot of the communication breakdown with the Soviet Union.
Mhm.
And on March 30th, 1981, John Hinckley attempted to assassinate Reagan in D.C. Reagan was actually shot, but was able to survive with quick medical attention. Technically, because he survived, Reagan broke the curse.
Did he break the curse? Interesting.
Kind of.
Okay.
So let's flash forward to the year 2000, 20 years after Reagan's election. We have one G.W. Bush.
W.
You fool him once, shame on you. Fool him twice, well, you ain't gonna fool him a second time, is the quote.
Yep.
So GW survived not one but two very credible and almost assassination attempts. The predominant one was he was giving a speech, I believe, in Iran, and somebody threw a grenade on the stage.
I thought it was a shoe.
No, he got shooed at another place.
Oh, okay. People like throwing shit at him. That's crazy.
He just has that face you want to throw things at. So they threw a grenade on stage, and for whatever reason, the pin was pulled. They threw it, and it did not go off.
Oh, damn.
There was no reason for it to not go off. It was a live grenade, and it for whatever reason, it didn't. So he was spared that day, and but I still think you can technically count that as a pretty serious assassination.
Yeah, that's an attempt. Yeah, definitely. I mean, you throw a grenade. I mean, shit.
That's a live grenade at a dude. That's a close call.
It's like, what was it, Franz Ferdinand? Someone threw a grenade at him, and the guy bounced it off back in the 1917. Whatever. Sorry, history tangent.
History.
Not going there.
World War I.
Yeah.
So the next presidential election will be held in November in 2020.
Yeah, I was like, this is the year 2020, Chris.
This is a curse year. Tuka Masaya will be watching and more than likely already registered to vote. So please make sure you're registered and go and freaking vote. Sorry about that. Whoever wins this election, there's a lot on their plate. No matter which side of the aisle you want to stand on, I'm not going to knock you for it. Just please go vote. Whoever is president, not only are they going to have to deal with everything that's happening in our great country, they will have to face the curse of Tecumseh. I said that very wrong. Tecumseh. I can never say his name.
Sounds like they're going to be burning a lot of sage in the White House in 2020.
I think we just need to have like a giant forest fire of sage burning.
Yeah, they have sagebrush in California. We just got to find a bunch of that.
Maybe that's what's burning right now.
Maybe that's true. There's a big fire in San Bernardino right now.
That's what I'm saying. Maybe it's
everyone
a sage
be
field,
safe.
So.
Yeah, interesting. They're prepping. Well, that's awesome. That's super interesting. Like I'd heard about like the curse of like the 20-year curse kind of before, but I didn't realize the kind of the depth and everything that goes into it. And
yeah, you can actually trace it back again from the year 2000 all the way back to Harrison.
That's crazy. Yeah, that's 160 years? No, 180 years?
Math numbers, sure.
Oh, yeah, 160 from 2000, 180 to 2020. That's crazy.
Yeah, and every year something has happened. The only exception would be Bush, who was spared. But, I mean, the attempt was made, and it was a very valid attempt. So, yeah, mine wasn't exactly a scary topic, paranormal. It's just kind of one of those odd things. I love the idea of curses that span generations, and this one has plagued America since President Harrison.
Good job.
Thank you, man. It was a lot of fun to research, and it was kind of jaw-dropping to go through and actually see the connection between everybody. So yeah, is there something to it? I don't know, but we will find out soon enough.
We will find out together.
Yeah. So that was my story. Up next, we're going to do our banter with the Beardsleys.
Hey-yo.
I think we need a jingle for it. I think that'll be fun.
Yeah, that would be fun. We got to come up with something. Someone send us a jingle, please. That's free and not copyrighted.
Yeah, license free, please.
Yes.
So in this little corner of our show, what we do is we'll pull up a random subject. Hopefully it's something that you guys submit, which you can do, and we'll get into all the ways you can contact us at the end of this segment here, or at the end of our show. We'll just talk everything with you guys, how to reach us. Mm-hmm. But hopefully you guys can send in conversation ideas. It could be just about anything you want. I tell you what, if you send it in, I can guarantee at some point we will blindly jump in and discuss it without any prep or real thought, and that's on you. I'll just say that. So yeah, so send it in.
Send it in, Jero.
So this week's random conversation we're about to have was brought to you by a random conversation generator, which you can replace. Replace this robot's job, please.
Please, 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 please.
So we picked this one out. It's kind of a meta subject. There's some quantum mechanics involved. It's good. It's deep.
Oh, nice. It's so meta, bro.
It's so meta. So this week's conversational piece would be: would you be able to tell if time had been altered in some way? Like I think I have an answer for it, and I'm gonna go ahead and let you finish. But I think I have something.
I mean, I think it's. Are you so like? Would we be able to tell if time was altered like from the past?
Like our current timeline. If our current timeline was somehow altered, would there be a way to tell?
Yeah, because our family photos, the pictures would start to disappear. Our family would fade out of existence.
And then like the random photo you have of like a tombstone, your name would start disappearing from it.
Exactly. I know I'm doing something right. Like, God.
Okay, so I think I have an unsubstantiated bit of evidence for a timeline disruption.
Okay.
Murder wasps.
I think I've seen that meme or whatever is about the guy in the background. It's like he was too late.
It's too late to stop Kanye.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the murder hornet wasp things, they showed up for like 3 days and then that was it. Why?
Yeah.
Where'd they go? You don't just disappear.
Yeah, I don't. That's really interesting. I don't know either. It's funny because one of my favorite books kind of touches on like this. Like there's a whole thing about like shadow people that come and like poke you out of existence. So my brain wants to say it's the shadow people, but no one would get that reference unless they read John Dies at the End. So I'm not going to make that reference, even though I just made that reference. I don't. In the general sense, no, I don't think we would be able to tell because that's kind of the whole point of like time being altered. But like, I feel like if it's something that touches your like somehow touches your life, like something gets altered from the past or something, you have a memory that you don't really know is like like you have like an old memory, you're like that doesn't, like everyone's like that never happened, but
like
you
the
think
Berenstein Bear paradox.
Exactly, yeah. So like the Mandela effect, that whole thing where it's kind of like, all right, like I feel like in that situation it could make sense sort of, but even that, like then you're just lumped into like the crazy people that like no, that never happened, you're crazy. Yeah, I don't know, man. Like we need to get what's his name, Neil deGrasse Tyson, to come in here and astrophysicist us, some information here. We need to go through some wormholes.
I think we have gone through wormholes, and I think that's why there's just so much craziness happening right now. Is I think somebody's jumping timelines trying to fix something, and every time he fixes that one thing, he steps on a tulip in Japan, and it throws it all out.
That's a possibility. Yeah. I know one of the things like in quantum physics that I remember when I took physics back in the day was like the whole idea of like alternate realities and alternate like universes, like in like the quantum whatever continuum, where like if you stand and like put your hand on a wall and you sit there for like millions and millions of years, that eventually you're going to fall through. So maybe if we got someone to give us the elixir of life and we can live forever, or get the Sorcerer's Stone and just turn shit into gold, or Philosopher's Stone, whatever it's called, depending on what side of the pond you're on. But yeah, we just need to do that, live forever, and one of us just stand against a wall for millions of years and see if we fall through, and then maybe we'll find where the time disruption came.
Yeah, but then that would be like one of the worst deaths you could possibly have.
But then you would find the answer. Okay, no, you know what? We'll just hire 5 from Umbrella Academy and have him jump back until he figures it out, because he always seems to find the apocalypse 10 days before it happens. So,
what if that's not a TV show on Netflix? What if it's a real thing and that's what happened?
It's a documentary. The Umbrella Academy is real.
So yeah, like somebody keeps jumping and it's like, trying to stop the apocalypse, and everything he's doing is screwing up our timeline. However, he's changing the end somehow.
So he like Doctor Strange, and he went through the 14,000,005 possibility outcomes, and he found the one that's going to make us live.
Yeah, or die, depending on which side of the good and evil coin he's on. But yeah.
Touche. That's kind of a heavy topic. Wasn't expecting to use my brain this much tonight.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, I thought, I'm like, okay, this is deep. We could do this.
Yeah, I wish I had a good answer for that. That's interesting. If there's any, astrophysicists out there, or, any physicists, let us know How would we know if the timeline was changed?
Or just somebody who happens to find this podcast and is tripping shrooms out in the forest right now.
Yeah, that too.
If
Like,
you
I got
could
the
figure it
answer,
out.
guys.
Yeah. Like, man, do your DMT and just let us know is all I'm saying.
Right. The plot twist is they don't even have a device to listen. They're just hearing us.
They're just one with it, man.
Yeah, the metaphysical radio waves are passing through. All right, I think we're losing it.
So this has been our corner of banter with the Beardsleys. I'm gonna find a jingle. It's gonna be good.
Yeah, I can't just keep making mouth noises. So last week I covered some American history, sort of popular culture with the Alexander Hamilton thing. But today I want to kind of bring it back more to our roots, like I kind of touched on with our paranormal history and background with that, and something that's kind of close to home for us here, for at least you and I locally. It's a local urban legend. But before I get into that, I did want to touch on one thing, and I did want to say, I'm going to get a little sappy here, so I apologize. But I did want to say the best thing so far that's come out of this podcast is the fact that you and I have to talk every week.
I would absolutely agree with that.
Like we've always been, like we've always talked a lot. We've always been close. I think, we'll get since this pandemic started, we really haven't been able to hang out that often, and we just, because life's been busy, we just, haven't talked as often. So I really appreciate. Even if this podcast, we never get any listeners and this never gets put out, I just appreciate the fact that you have to talk to me at least once a week. And I'm going to eat that shit up.
The funny part is I'm not actually talking to you. I pre-recorded this and I'm just hitting play.
Are you what is the Turing test or the Chinese room where it's just pre-scripted responses?
Pretty much. That's what's happening.
That'll be another topic. That's topic like 8 and 9. Okay, sorry. Into my topic. But yeah, so going to cover an urban legend that's local to us. And the name of that urban legend is the Char-Man. Not to be confused with Charmander, the starter Pokemon. This is the Char-Man. Chris, you know the legend. I know, we've talked about it. We've discussed it numerous times. But I don't know, have you and I actually gone out and done this together? I know we did the Ojai vampire thing with Lauren and Mouse that one time, I think, in the old the LeBaron. But we never did Char-Man together, right? I've done it a couple times with friends, but I don't think you and I have done it together, right?
I think we did it on that trip because it's actually down the road.
It's the same road, right? Yeah.
So okay. I'm pretty sure if we went all the way up to Ojai to do this, I'm sure we drove around the corner.
Yeah. We got halfway there, like, nah, we're good.
Right.
Okay. So for those of you close to the area that live near Chris and I that live in the Southern California, the Ventura County region, you're probably familiar with this legend. Chris did just mention that it takes place in Ojai. But where
I will just throw in really quick that Patrick Duffy lives there from Step by Step fame. Just putting it out there.
Oh, good to know.
And Coach from Coach Craig T. Nelson.
Coach from Coach. But yeah, so most people are probably familiar with the legend that live locally. For those that don't, I'm gonna get into that. In doing my research, I kind of discovered more than like the story I was told, and kind of the legend I know of is one of some multiple legends. So we'll kind of get into like those ones. So the legend of Char-Man, the urban legend of Char-Man, takes place, like you said, in the city of Ojai, which is in Southern California, for those of you who are not around us. Ojai is a really small town. There's only about 7,000 people in the town. If you're listening to this and you're from a part of the country where 7,000 people sounds like a lot, I apologize. Chris lives in Los Angeles, which has millions of people.
Millions. My neighbor, there's like 20 million people on my block. So.
I live in a city where our population is somewhere around 300,000. So, 7,000 people in a city, like that's a high school for us. So, so I apologize if you live in a town that has 7,000 people, considered a small town. Sorry to burst your bubble. You're kind of in a small town.
You're in a small town, yeah. And, can I just kind of give like a quick vibe feel of Ojai?
Yeah, go for it.
So Ojai is one of those like one street towns. There's one main street and everything kind of branches off of that. And it's super eclectic, super artsy, and there's this underlying creepy factor that is tangible.
Yes.
It's kind of like, okay, if you've ever seen The Lost Boys, when they get to the town, they're like, something's weird here. I don't know what it is, but there's something. And there's a buff shirtless guy playing the saxophone. What's up with that? That's essentially Ojai, but in the mountains in like a wooded area.
With more hippies.
A lot more hippies, but yeah.
Yeah. I put Fun side note, I worked in the city of Ojai for almost 10 years at a private Catholic school, and let me tell you, that place was haunted as fuck.
Yeah, that place was all bad, man.
Yeah, we've done some investigations there. And the city of Ojai itself, along with being eclectic and everything, there's a couple books written by some fairly well-known paranormal investigators and quote-unquote ghost hunters that have done stuff in Ojai. But, that's for future episodes. We'll touch on that later. So Char-Man, the legend starts, the whole idea of it goes back to 1948. There was a brush fire that burned through the Ojai Valley. Ojai is in a valley between a couple mountain ranges. So it's colloquially known as the Ojai Valley. In the 1940s, the population was just over 1,600 people, and most of the homes were spread out pretty far. Legend tells us that the fire swept through the remote wooded area outside of the unincorporated city area. Again, 1,600 people, it's a pretty small town, so not much of an incorporated area, but the fire was just outside of that. Officials attempted to warn residents, but due to the lack of communications and the remote locations of many homes, they were unable to warn everyone. Nowadays, we have cell phones, we have radios, news, stuff like that. Like in 1948, they had the radio, and that was pretty much it. It consisted, I looked up some stuff, it was like literally like the police officers like driving around, like yelling, like, there's a fire coming, like, get out. One of these remote dwellings was a cabin in the woods near what's called Signal Street and Daly Road, where a man and his son lived together. When the
Now,
fire, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to give like a description of that intersection.
Mhm.
It's back then, I'm sure even more so than now, it would be completely isolated. There's
Yes.
oak trees all over the place, and then nothing. There's no street lights. It's just this weird little nothing corner.
Yeah, it's kind of, there's just like a lot of land out there. And even today, there's not many homes. There's homes in the area, but it's not as densely populated as a lot of cities. So one of the cabins was on Signal Street and Daly Road, and a man and his son lived there. When the fire was approaching, they were unable to escape, unfortunately. The fire quickly burned through the home, killing the man. Somehow the son survived, but hearing his father being burned to death drove him mad. With this madness, the son hung his father upside down from a tree that also somehow managed to survive the fire. And the son flayed the father. For those of you unfamiliar with medieval torture techniques, being flayed is when your skin is pulled off of your body. The son then fled into the woods. So this is 1948. This is kind of the legend that people are starting to come up with. We're going to fast forward to 1961, and a newspaper reporter for the Ojai Valley News, which is the local newspaper, which is actually still in circulation to this day, reported that when she moved to the area, her children heard the story of the Char-Man. They were told that a man who has burnt flesh lives in the foothills off of Shelf Road. So if you follow Signal Street in 1961, it would end abruptly and become a dirt road named Shelf Road. So, give it 13 years in the future, and now this home was supposedly at a crossroads. Now it's off of a dirt road pushed into the foothills.
Right.
The same year, we get a report from a local police officer who claims that there was not a monster or like this charred person, but rather a very tame reason for it. Sergeant Bill Clamser, who worked for the Ojai Police Department in the 60s, gave an interview in the 1980s. Today, the city of Ojai is policed by the local sheriff's department, but back then they had a local PD and they had the sheriff's department, so there's kind of like joint police forces. Sergeant Clamser said that sometime around 1961, 1962, he can't really recall, they started to get a lot of reports of kids seeing a, quote, awful-looking creature off of Shelf Road. The kids said that the body of the man was badly burned and deformed and that he was, quote, charred. Sergeant Clamser claimed that this was the first time the word charred or char would be used to describe the inhabitant of Shelf Road. So the Ojai Police Department does what any good local police department does, and they ignore it. They say it's just kids being kids. They're making up stories. Not a big deal. We're not going to mess with it. Shortly after this report, however, more teenagers start saying that there were a, quote, charred figure off of Shelf Road near where Shelf Road and Signal Street interchange names. So kind of around where that road becomes, pavement, asphalt to dirt. So Sergeant Clamser says this is when the police department starts to take things more seriously. They began to patrol the roads in an attempt to locate anyone who meets this description. At this point, the local kids start to colloquially call the awful-looking creature, quote, the Char-Man. So this is kind of where we see the legend of the Char-Man start to grow. And wouldn't you know it, they find him. Great job, police department. Yep, they found him. It turns out that Char-Man, that this Sergeant Clamser claims, the Char-Man that kids were seeing was an elderly man who suffered from a rare skin disease and had skin cancer and that deformed his face and one of his arms. He liked to take his dog and on a walk, and this is when people would be spotted. They would spot him like kind of walking down the road. So like, this is the Char-Man. It's just a figured person. He just had cancer. Case closed, right?
I hope not.
Obviously not, because we wouldn't be sitting here talking about this. We wouldn't have driven up to Ojai. We wouldn't have done, like, why would we hear about this legend if the case was closed? So we're going to fast forward a couple more years to around 1965 to 1968. It's weird that a lot of these early eyewitness accounts can't remember exactly the time of when these things happened. It's almost as if people in the 60s were doing lots of drugs. Like, I don't know.
No way, especially up in a hippie
Yeah, I don't get it. Who knows?
Yeah.
Maybe just mass memory wipes. Maybe the Men in Black went back in time. Anyways, so sometime between 1965 and 1968, a man named Mark Gates claims that he and his friend Eddie White were attacked by the Char-Man. Gates claims that the stories they were told involved a man and a woman who lived in a cabin in a remote area of Ojai off of Old Creek Road. Now, again, we're changing areas, and for reference, those of you that aren't from the area, Old Creek Road is about 8 miles south of the Shelf Signal interchange, and it's on the opposite side of Ojai. They said that the same fire in 1948 ravaged through the area and killed the woman. The man, who happened to be outside the cabin, attempted to get back in the cabin to save his wife, but he was unsuccessful. He was badly burned in the attempt, and he went mad hearing his wife scream and plead with him to help her. Legend said that if you went to Old Creek Road and cried for help, the Char-Man would come and try to help. But when he realized that you weren't really in distress, he would get upset and he would try to attack you. So Gates and White, huh?
I mean, it's kind of ironic because so you're screaming for help and he comes over like, dude, I got you. What's up?
Exactly.
And then you're fine. And then he starts attacking you, at which point you need help.
Exactly. And there's no Char-Man to come rescue you.
Yeah. So I think it's a kind of a paradoxical situation.
Yeah. Kind of weird.
Yeah. Go on.
So Gates and White decide to go to the area, and they park their car and they start to yell, "Help me," over and over again to see if Char-Man would appear. Gates then says that a horribly burned man did indeed arrive and got upset, and so he attacked the man, grabbing White by the arm and tearing his jacket. The two men jumped back into the car. They drove off while the man was banging on the trunk of the car trying to chase them. However, around the same time in 1967, an anonymous man gives an interview for the Star Free Press. That's what our local newspaper used to be called. That's now the Ventura County Star. He gave an anonymous interview with the newspaper claiming to be the Char-Man and that he had perpetrated the entire thing as an elaborate hoax. He claims that he heard the rumors and would go wait at night for people to come and yell and then jump out and scare them. Which, side note, that's kind of fucking weird. Like, who hides on the side of the road and wait for people to scare? Like, what the fuck?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's kind of weird. And also, too, there are a lot of wild animals.
Yeah. Like, it's not a cool place to just chill and, like,
there's coyotes.
Like, you're going to get eaten by something. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, nah, I'm calling bullshit on this one.
Yeah. This anonymous man also claims that he knew Gates and White and that they were his original victims of the prank. He said he heard where they were going one night, so he put on a pig mask, which I'm assuming is a plastic mask and not like an actual pig mask.
Or like a cop mask.
Maybe, yeah, I don't know. I mean, either way, good for him for wearing a mask. But he put on some sort of, I'm hoping like a plastic mask. I don't think he actually wore like a pig's face. And he went out early and he sat and waited for them. Then when Gates and White arrived and began to yell for help, he charged them and scared them. He then purposely grabbed, quote, the white kid so I could tear his clothes, end quote. So we have these two kids that say they were attacked. We have one person saying, like, I was the person that attacked them. Like, I got this. However, there's another person in the same time period who came forward, and he refutes both Gates and White's claims and the anonymous prankster. And his name is Officer Gene Meadows, formerly the Ojai Police Department. So Officer Meadows claims that he has personally chased off the Char-Man numerous times, and that he was also one of the officers that responded when Gates and White were attacked.
Which is really interesting because, I mean, just because he's a cop, you're giving him credibility.
You kind of think, okay, like, yeah, you know, we want to believe more that, you know, like this guy's, it's what he does, you know, like, you know.
Exactly. And I think, you know, if you really wanted to, you could probably go get those records from those nights and actually find his police report.
I looked into it. Yeah. I don't have the money to purchase police records. So if anyone out there wants to sponsor us, we can get police records.
Yeah.
We'll get to that later. So during the course of the officer investigating the Gates and the White attack, They came up with a person who they believe the attacker was, and they think he was a local vagrant whom Officer Meadows described as a quote wild looking colored man end quote. Again, it's the 1960s. I apologize for the racial insensitivities. I don't. Yeah. Um,
Oh,
and
yeah.
so this vagrant, they knew of him, and he came up from Los Angeles, and he would be frequently found in creek beds, like off the sides of the road. Which again, what the fuck, people? Like, why are you hanging out in the creek beds? Like, I don't get it.
And kudos to that guy for making it all the way from Los Angeles up to Ojai, which is about 2.5 hours.
Yeah, it's a nice little trek, especially if you're a vagrant and you're on foot.
Yeah, I don't think that's very plausible.
Yeah. So Officer Meadows claims this particular attack with the two boys was the result of them taunting the vagrant, and that the anonymous claim to the newspaper was someone's way of trying to capitalize on the story. So he says that these three men are all full of shit, but he is not, because he had been called numerous times to chase a disfigured man into the woods. Maybe he was just chasing the same vagrant guy. I don't really know. More recently, the story has morphed yet again, and local paranormal investigators and historians believe they know why. So kind of a fact-checking thing here, right? So there really was a fire in 1948 that burned the Ojai Valley, and it burned just over 30,000 acres. They also found the charred remnants of a house that is now known as the Sanderson House. This is a house that burned down in the 1948 fire. We know the Sandersons survived the fire, and while the 1948 fire officially did not claim any loss of life, with the remoteness of homes, we don't really know. There could have been stuff out there. They just know that we found one charred remains of a house. We don't know if there was more.
Yeah, and back then they wouldn't have had really accurate records.
Exactly. Yeah, there was a lot of people that just kind of like built stuff up. Yeah.
Yeah.
So local paranormal investigators speculate that there could very well be more homes like the Sanderson home that burned near Shelf Road. But as Ojai, so they also think, okay, so now there could have been stuff that burned down. As Ojai began to incorporate more people, the population got more, more densely populated. They started kind of reaching out into those remote areas, and that the Char-Man could have he fled further and further into the woods. And then once he kind of ran out of space, because the area off of Shelf Road kind of backs into like the Los Padres National Forest, so it kind of gets into like a really hilly terrain where it's, if you're this monster running around, you can't really,
You're
keep
running
your
out
wits
of
about
space.
you. Yeah. So that's why paranormal investigators believe that the Char-Man relocated to the more remote area of Old Creek Road. Why the Char-Man would relocate from his original dwelling is beyond me, but maybe he really wanted to get away from people, and Old Creek Road was remote enough that he could get away from a lot of people, but he still could be nearby if people needed help. So the story I was told as a teenager was that there was a man who was driving down Old Creek Road, which is a road that right before you get into Ojai, it kind of winds around a small mountain. And the man had crashed his car right before crossing a bridge. The car caught fire. The man was trapped in the car, but he managed to free himself. But after freeing himself, he was really badly burned. He was on fire. He ran into the woods. We were told that if you drove around Old Creek Road, you got close enough to the bridge, you could start to smell the stench of burning flesh and hear the screams of someone, like kind of running through the woods. If you parked your car, turn off your lights, and wait, you would be approached by the Char-Man, and he would attempt to burn you. So what did I see, you may ask? Well, I can definitely tell you it's super fucking creepy out there. The road is surrounded by dense woods. We kind of talked about that earlier. And there's really not much moonlight or anything that penetrates the trees. So like you get down the road, you turn off your lights, there's almost no light. It's pitch black. It's super spooky.
It's pitch black, and then it's also kind of in like a little bit of a canyon.
Yeah, so like you're kind of surrounded by some like the cliffs, and like there's some like rocky areas. On the many trips I've taken to Old Creek Road, we parked near what was now colloquially known as the Char-Man Bridge. I've only had one weird thing happen, and I never saw anything, but one night I did smell like that very distinct smell of like burning flesh. For those of you that have never smelled burning flesh, imagine like you burn your hair like when you're cooking or you're doing something over an open flame, and then like combine that smell of like hair burning with like cooking a steak, and like when you're like frying something with oil and the oil spills and it, like that weird like kind of fat smell. If you put all this stuff together, that's kind of what it smells like.
And it
And
doesn't leave your nostrils.
yeah, it's kind of a very like not sour is not the right term, but like it kind of penetrates your nose and like it gets stuck up there.
Yeah.
So we smelled that, and then someone in the car got scared. I'm not going to mention any names, but you're a pansy and you got scared, and we ended up having to leave.
Hey,
So we
I don't think it was me. I'm pretty sure that was Mouse.
not saying any words. Mouse, it may have been you. If you're listening to this, I apologize. Uh, but yeah, so we ended up taking off pretty quickly and we left. Today, you ask around, that seems to be the most common story told amongst the locals. And if you look at the legend of Char-Man, this is most likely what you're going to find. The legend continues to grow, and with most urban legends, I think will continue to morph into whatever makes the most sense to those who live in the area now. So is the legend of Char-Man a son driven mad by the sounds of his dying father, a husband driven insane hearing his wife plead for help, or a tragic car accident? Don't know. Come take a trip to Southern California and visit Old Creek Road, and you can find out for yourself. Or pay us some money. We'll go live. We'll broadcast on Instagram and Facebook, and we'll just let you guys see what happens.
Yeah, I think that actually would be a lot of fun to do, kind of a field trip, and just sit out there all night, do our show, and see what happens.
Yeah, that'd be fun. Quick epilogue side note. Apparently they made a movie called The Char-Man.
What?
It came out in 2019. It's a found footage movie, so it's kind of like the Blair Witch Project and all that stuff. I have not seen it, but apparently it's really bad. It got 3.5 out of 10 on IMDb. Rotten Tomatoes has a fan score of 80, which is promising, but there's only like 3 or 4 votes, so I don't really. It could probably be the people that produced it.
I was about to say, yeah, it was like the actors from the movie.
Yeah, there's some other sites that just kind of review like horror movies and stuff, and they kind of universally like shit on it, and they say it's not a very good movie. So I still kind of want to see it just to say I've seen it. But it sounds like it's a pretty typical like builds up the suspense, and then you have like the the found footage where you see stuff, and then who knows, maybe someone stares into the camera and talks about how scared they are, and they dribble snot all over the camera.
That sounds like an Oscar winner to me.
So yeah, so that is our possibly bullshit but local urban legend, the Char-Man.
Yeah, that was a fascinating story because, yeah, growing up, the story I heard was the same as you with the car accident on the road.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of cool to see there's actual historic information about the wildfire.
Yeah, it was pretty cool seeing like the actual history behind it, and then finding that like there was an actual home that got burned in the fire, and it's like the plausibility of it could be there. And then like kind of how the story morphed and grew over time as kind of like more people came in, and like kind of like as the invention of cars kind of took place. Not the invention of cars were around in 1948, but like as cars became more populous, especially in like Southern California, up in the mountain area, like it kind of just formed into that legend. So who knows, maybe in 2080 it'll be some hover car that crashes and the guy falls out of the hover car.
Ojai is it's one of those towns that it's a creepy town. It's one of those places where you're like, you don't want to break down there.
Yeah.
There's nothing good that'll happen.
Yes, this is true.
Like I did a play out there once at I believe it's Libby Park.
Yeah.
And it's this beautiful like old style stage with like the whole like clamshell type theater thing. And I go out to start doing my performance, and I look out in the audience, and who's sitting third row aisle seat? Freddy Krueger, Robert Englund.
Yep.
Was sitting there, and I'm like, of course Freddy Krueger is in Ojai. That's the kind of town
that's where he lives. Yeah.
Absolutely.
He haunts dreams from the Ojai Valley.
So yeah, man, Ojai's not okay.
We love you, Ojai. Don't be mad. Don't sue us.
Right. So yeah, man, awesome job. Thank you for bringing up a memory I completely forgot about.
You're welcome.
But yeah, good times. That was a lot of fun, and I'm definitely down to do a field trip and just kind of hang out there again.
Yeah, I'm so down.
Dude, that could be like our season finale. I'm just putting it out there in the Maybe Cup season finale, Old Creek Road.
We're doing seasons?
I mean, maybe.
We'll make it a season finale.
Yeah, we'll find a season finale just for this. So yeah, man, awesome job. Earlier we talked about we would love to hear feedback from them and give us some ideas for the banter with the Beardsley's Corner.
Yes.
How can they reach us?
So we've been hard at work. We now have a footprint on the interwebs. You can go to www.beardedthings.com and find our website. There's not much on the website right now. We're still kind of working on that, but it's a work in progress. You can also find us on Instagram at beardedthingspod. and then on facebook.com/beardedthings.
That's how you reach us. Let us know what you think about this. If you have any ideas for topics or just a conversational bit for bearded banter with the Beardsleys, let us know. If you just want to say hi, you want to like compare beard tips, you want beard tips because you don't have a beard and you want to get a beard. Here for you. We've been through all the phases of it.
This is true. The itchy phase, the long phase, the significant other telling you to cut that fucking thing off or I'm never going to kiss you again. We've been there. We'll walk you we'll walk you through it. It's okay.
Thank you very much for listening, and we will be back next week.
Yes, sir.